and she body slams me into the cot that we had, and then the cot collapses, and we both land on the floor, and I hit my head on the floor, and then for the next like 15 minutes, we're just like crying, laughing, because it's like such a great time. So yeah. The room is so cute.
Jen got the cheese.
Jen did get the cheese.
Of course she did get the cheese.
The room is about the size of your kitchen at home.
Yeah. No, it was smaller than that. So small. And then the boys had this like gigantic cameras.
Yeah.
It's so much space.
What are some other funny stories from the week?
Okay, so we had a leader from Bright Pelicans Missions. Her name was Stephanie. Yeah, we nicknamed her Potato. Yeah. So her name was Potato, and she was just all around, just made us laugh all the time, and she was amazing. And she was from Puerto Rico. She was born there, and she lives in Florida now, but she's down there to do mission work for the summer. So she was awesome.
Any other funny stories from the week?
One time I was crying so much, I cried because Katie's hair looked pretty.
There were a lot of tears. There were a lot of tears.
Who did your hair? Jesse. Good job, girl.
Jesse also braided my hair. So.
Morgan did some too.
Morgan is the wife of the other church leader, and she did
good work.
as well.
All right, Helena's got a story, I think.
Okay, so this is McCade's story, but he's afraid to say it. So,
Everybody know what it is?
no, I've got it back way. Okay, so for bags, like checking in, you can't have liquids over 3 ounces. And this guy brought in a jar of peanut butter.
Not liquid.
And then I didn't think it was a liquid and everything, and he got it taken away, his bag searched, and he was very distraught. He's like so sad.
There's another McCade Airport story on the way back, but it's not safe to not safe to
All right, so some of us don't really know what you guys what all you guys did as far as serving for the week. So someone kind of give us a recap of what the week looked like whenever you guys got there, what you guys kind of did each day, so that way people kind of know, kind of just an overview, and then we'll kind of dive into it more.
So we got there on Saturday, and then Sunday we went to church, and it was super fun, and like they had like dancers, and like it was never quiet, like they were always playing instruments, and like it was like 2.5 hours, but it felt like 30 minutes because we were all having so much fun. And so and then I know, what did we stay? And then Monday through Wednesday, half of us did VBS for half of the day, and there were different parts of VBS, and then the rest of us worked the whole day. Yeah, on houses. There were houses, and we worked, like we painted a lot and like chipped a lot of paint. I'm sorry. And then Friday we went to San Juan. Thursday we went there. I'm sorry. And we went to this big castle, and that's where that's taken. That too. And yeah, and then Friday we came home. Yeah, that's all.
That was a cute picture.
Katie forgot to mention that on Sunday after church, we did a prayer walk around the city or town around the church, and that was really cool. We split into groups, and to get around Old San Juan, to get around Bayamon, we ride in the back of trucks, which is really fun. Yeah.
We all tried to surf
so
in
much
the
fun.
back of the trucks. It was a lot of fun. Just like real
And one of the truck drivers like to swerve, and so we slammed.
Yeah.
Hey, McCain, who was that driver? That was
I think so. I think yes.
Ben proving himself, look at that.
I thought I was going to die.
That was on Thursday. Oh, that's your favorite thing.
All right. right, so this week you guys served through VBS was one of the places you guys served. Someone tell me kind of what that looked like and what you learned or what you experienced at VBS.
Okay, so I was in VBS 2 of the 3 days, and we started off with music, and kind of everyone was in music, and we did like the dances, and then we would split them between kind of like, I don't know what the exact ages are, but like high school age, and then little elementary school kids.
It was like
13
up to 12.
12 and 13. And so I was never with the older kids, but with the younger kids, we would do crafts, and then we would kind of like hold that as long as we could, and then we would go outside and we would play fun games. And
we did music.
I did music. Yeah. And we also all shared object lessons and testimonies.
Yeah. So for the older kids, what we did after we didn't do like any of the crafts or like the little kid games. We took a little truck and we went to the the basketball
All the
court.
basketball courts in Puerto Rico are covered, by the way, which is super cool.
Yeah, so we went there, and Tuesday, I went 2 out of the 3 days, so I don't remember what they did one day. But Tuesday it was a game of knockout, and then we played soccer the rest of the time because that's what they wanted to do. And then Wednesday we did dodgeball, kickball, and basketball. So that was really cool. And then we shared testimonies with them.
On Monday with the high school kids, we just played 3-on-3 soccer, and then in the parking lot in front of the church we played soccer, and then we played like a kind of a baseball game that the people from Supplee made up. It's kind of like baseball, but it was just one line. It wasn't like a whole diamond.
Called half ball.
Half ball.
They didn't make it up.
Yeah, so after VBS every morning, one of the days, I did VBS all 3 days, but one of the days we went to a house and worked, and then the other 2 days we worked at the church. So we worked in their garden, we worked on their baptismal pool thing. Yeah. Okay, but we still did it, and we just worked with the kids too in the afternoons.
Tell them about some of the kids y'all met.
We're gonna start crying. Okay. There are honestly like amazing kids there, and we already miss them. And we have all their Snapchats and phone numbers, so we've been keeping them. Not all of them. Not all of them, but we already miss them. But you want to name one?
There was one girl, Heliana. She was 7. We met her during the prayer walk. Yeah, so then we came back the next day for the first day of VBS, and she gave Helena and I a picture of herself, which is really cute. And then she brought us mangoes the next day that she grew in her backyard. That was really cool, and we actually got to eat them. And then, but they told us not to eat fruit that we found, but we still ate these because she gave us.
We broke every rule that they gave us. Mostly me. Ryan, hey, in our defense, Ryan told us never say no to anything that was offered to you.
It doesn't mean don't use common sense.
Good job. Okay, so another kid that we met there, his name was Davi Saeed. Yeah, so he was 3 years old. He was 4?
No, he was almost 4. He was
almost 4. Anyways, so he liked to play the djembe while I played the guitar, and that was a lot of fun. And then also, something to say about him is that no matter how much or how little we spoke Spanish, he would just like talk in Spanish. Just like acting like we understood every word. It was just amazing.
One time I was with the VC and
No.
Okay, so he was helping me pick up all of the jump ropes that we were using, and all of a sudden he ran in front of me towards the road and towards the edge of the mountain. So I was yelling his name, and there was no one else around, and all of a sudden he turns around and pulls.
He's on the end with the juice box.
Yeah. So all of a sudden he turned around and pulled his pants down and started peeing in the middle of the parking lot. Right in front of me, yeah, and his mom was yelling at him, and I didn't understand anything she said. Because I ran away.
So was the language barrier something that kept you guys, or how did that work?
I had a quote this week and I copyrighted it. It was our actions were speaking louder than the language barrier because like someone, I don't remember who was saying, like so many of them I don't think realized that like we didn't know Spanish and like they would just like walk up and like start talking. But like you just have to be like, yeah, and they just like keep talking and be like best friends. And it was just awesome because I think like 5 of them realized that we had no idea what they were saying, but it didn't faze them at all because they kept talking.
Yeah, it was.
They helped teach us.
Like, yeah, he was like, oh. Like no one knew what he was saying.
Yeah, it was awesome to be able to play with some of the high school kids, and some of them didn't speak any English at all, and just throwing a football around is just like just having that just weird connection where we don't know each other. We didn't know each other. We don't speak the same language. We don't know what each other are saying, but we can still have the greatest of times just throwing a football, spending time with them, and just knowing that they're loved, and then them like returning that love back to us. It was an awesome experience.
I do have a quick story about the language barrier. So I would always ask the kids, ¿Cuántos años tienes? Which is how old are you? And Jaza, which is one of the kids that hang out with us a lot, I looked at him and I was like, ¿Cuántos años tienes? And then he just looked at me and he goes, I'm 9, like in perfect English. And he was like, he just like looked at me and he was just like, I'm 9. I know exactly what you're saying. And so he spoke very good English. I remember him. Like we would forget that he spoke English, and so we tried to speak in Spanish, and he would just like speak to us in English. Okay, that's my story. Bye.
Do you want to share just like a little bit more about like the culture? And
We learned how to salsa dance.
Show us.
Someone show us how to salsa.
Oh my gosh.
All right, McCabe, go.
David and Paul.
Paul and David. I saw a video of Ben and McKay.
Oh yeah, Ben.
Come on, Ben and McKay. Watch the hips.
Yeah, what's the kids' hips?
Yeah. It's all in the hips.
Good job.
They just very nice. Where did y'all learn to salsa? Who taught y'all? How was that?
All right, so
All right, Ethan's got it. He's not.
all right, so apparently there's a church that was like an hour away from where we were staying, but every time that there's a mission group, they offer to teach them how to salsa. So, well, we took them up on that offer. And apparently that was the biggest group that they've ever had because we had our church, how do you pronounce the other one? Subtlety, same difference. And then there was a third team that was staying with us at the same place, And then there was actually a fourth group of people because that other group wasn't that big and there were a lot of people that I didn't recognize. So there was like a fourth group there. From Kansas, yeah, I guess. And so that was one of the biggest groups that they've had doing that, which was really fun. And then talking about the culture, well, rice and beans is quite a staple there.
How was the food?
Delectable.
So good. Muy delicioso.
It was delectable.
Talk about breakfast. We actually had
Nutella.
ham and cheese sandwiches for breakfast a couple of the days, but they love Nutella. Like there are mini Nutellas that they sell at Starbucks, and at like there were Nutella Frosties too.
Yeah, I went to
Whitney's.
So on the day that we went to like Old San Juan, we got to pick where we wanted to go to lunch, and so like most of the group went to Wendy's because like they're super American. But like the guys, no, they wanted Nutella Frosties. But anyway, so the guys, we went to this Cuban Puerto Rican restaurant, and they had this thing called mofongo, and it's like mashed potatoes except it's mashed plantains. And it was the best thing I have ever eaten in my whole life. And then Paul had this Cuban sandwich, but it wasn't like an American Cuban sandwich, it was a Cuban sandwich. And like, it was so good.
Yes, we were having a discussion when we were trying to order, we were like, is this a Cuban sandwich? because on the menu it just said sandwich. Since we were sort of, in Puerto Rico / Cuba, they would just call it a sandwich. So it turned out to be a Cuban sandwich, but it was really good.
So since we're on the topic of Wendy's, so at the end, on Thursday night, we did these things called Paper Plate Awards. And everybody got a different thing. For example, Helena was with a real Slim Shady. Please stand up.
That
Because no one, I forgot. Emma, what was yours?
Let's just take a moment. Wyatt got the Good Behavior Award. I don't know who they met.
I got the honorary Supply Award. Because so when we were at Wendy's, actually no, this is because of Wendy's. I had been spending so much time with them because hey, they're new people, want to meet them. And so I'm there with them, and Morgan. All right, watch yourself. Brittany, that was her name. All right, now back to the story, y'all. But so I had spent so much time with them that Morgan, the youth director's wife, she was there with them, and we were at the Wendy's, we were in the line, and it was really like a really unruly line. So she just yells, "Everybody, get against the wall now, or else you're not eating." So everybody just snaps against the wall, including me. And so yeah, that's one of the few times that I actually listened to orders. Love you, Dad.
They must not have him as one of
Yeah,
the
they kind of it's one of their own ones. One of the only. That's been like 4 instances. But yeah, so I didn't realize that they were going to be paying for like all their students. So I'm just kind of standing there in line, just like. And then Jen comes in and she's like, "Ethan, you're paying for yourself. Get out of their line." And I'm like, "Okay."
Okay, so another cool thing we tried in Old San Juan was this drink called Mavi. So what Mavi is that it's a fermented root, and when you think of fermented, you think of like alcohol. But it's not like that fermented. Our friend Stephanie said that like,
It was legal.
Yeah, it was legal, and you had to drink like a bunch of it. 5 cups. But we tried it, and it was very good, and it was awesome. It's called Mavi.
So still on the topic of food, one of the things that we found out was that basically every day after we were done working on the houses and the VBS and everything, they would take us somewhere. And the first day, they took us to this square in Old San Juan that had an ice cream shop, helado, and they had this ice cream that was made out of corn. It was really strangely good. It tasted like pumpkin pie because it had corn and cinnamon in it, and it wasn't like vanilla ice cream with corn in it. It really was corn ice cream. It was really good. But they had a bunch of other flavors, Puerto Rican cherry, and it was really good.
Should we talk about Kylie?
Wait, so like each day after VBS and like working in the mornings, like they made us lunch, which was super nice of them, especially because there was like 35 of us or something. But it wasn't like subpar food, like it was top notch. And so So on the first day, like we went to go pick up the food, which was one of the times when we broke the rules because we didn't go with the right people. But me and Hayes went to go pick up the food, and this like church member made some kind of chicken, like on this wood fire grill that he had outside, and but anyway, so he had like this whole like room kind of. It was like a room, but it was outside, dedicated to his grill, and his daughter and his son, who were both like. Well, his daughter was like 15 and his son was like 8. They stayed home from VBS that day just to cook our food. Like that's how dedicated that they were to serving us, was that they stayed home so that they could cook for us.
So today in Royce's sermon, she had McCabe come up on stage and asked him, he kind of shared about serving, about that you guys went with the intention to serve, but I know that you guys were not only served in return, but I also know that you guys learned a ton. And so what is something that you learned that you are going to remember forever from this trip? Something that has stuck out to you that you've learned and applied to your life?
Hospitality.
How so?
Just like when we got there, we had no idea who they were, like the congregation. But when we stand up in church and like meet each other, like they came up and like gave us hugs and just big hugs, and they were so appreciative of us, and they just like it was like we were like already a part of their church, and the food, that too, they just made all this food for us. They were so hospitable to us. It was great. Hospitable.
One thing, the way they welcome their visitors, they told us on Sunday in church that the way they welcome their visitors is not through the use of a gift bag, but literally they make the visitors stand up and everybody in the church comes and gives them a hug or shakes their hand. Well,
they were singing a song, I don't know what they were saying.
Yeah, something in Spanish that presumably was very welcoming, but it was pretty moving.
One thing that I'm gonna remember is like appreciation, but like not for like material things, but for like joy, because like the people down there, like they didn't have everything, but they were so happy. And this little boy named Jaza, I got really close with him throughout the week, and at the end, like I expected to get a lot out of this week, but I didn't expect for them to like miss us as much as they do. And he was like hugging all of us and like saying like, please remember me, and like, please like, can I please like see you again? Like he was being so like sweet and like bawling his eyes out, and he said like he cried himself to sleep, and it was just like crazy how like we didn't, or I don't know we, but like me, I didn't expect to like make that much of an impact on anybody, and it was just like they don't have as much as us like material wise, but they were like so blessed and they were so happy, and like I don't know, it was just nice.
So one thing that also connected us, and I did not realize this or how much this was, is worship. And particularly the worship music that they sang. It was amazing. Like they said, it was literally 2.5 hours. I looked at my watch, I was like, I'm just curious what time. It was 2.5 hours at that point. I had never looked at my watch since then, and sometimes I do that here. But I had never looked at my watch until that point. But some of the songs, you could recognize the tune, obviously, and you know, they had the words on the screen just like we do. And so we could try and sing along and probably butcher some of them. But one of the things that we did, so Daphne actually sang the song Reckless Love, and she sang it in Spanish. And then we were up on stage, and the chorus, you know, where we would normally sing, obviously in English, we actually sang it for them in Spanish. And it was, I hope I'm not the only one, I had chills as we were up there and we were singing that. And so the last time we sang the chorus, it was in English. And then the pastor loved it so much that at the end, he actually had us come back up on stage, and Sapli came up with us, and we sang it again, and the whole church sang it with us. So it was, that connection of music was just kind of an amazing experience.
Yeah, so more on that, like, when we did it that last time, like, we were playing with, you know, their musicians and stuff. So the first time we did it, it was like Hayes playing guitar and me playing the djembe, and so it was pretty a cappella. But then, like, we played it the second time, we had their full band, and so I don't know if they'd ever played that song before, but we were like, you know, doing it on the fly, and so it was just really cool to see how worship connected us, because we were like communicating with them up on stage, like the musicians. Like I was talking to the drummer, Daphne was talking to the guitarist, Hayes was talking to the guitarist, and then on Wednesday afternoon after VBS, when we were working with the church and we had some downtime, we kind of formed like a makeshift band, and so it was like half of like our band kind of, and then half of their band. And we just started playing songs both in Spanish and English that like we kind of knew or they kind of knew, and we would look up like chords on our phones and stuff. And it was just really powerful to kind of, you know, be able to bridge that gap. And even though like we didn't understand the words that they were singing, they didn't really understand the words that we were singing, like the fact that we were all worshiping God and we knew that was just really powerful.
Yeah, more on the worship. One of the most powerful moments for me, it was something super small but super powerful for me personally, was during when we sang Reckless Love the second time with the whole band and the whole church. I looked over, I was playing guitar in the back, and I look over at the drummer, and the drummer I tried to communicate with after, but he didn't speak much English. But during the worship song, during the bridge when we were supposed to be building back up and getting louder, he looked over at me and I looked over at him, and he just went like this, and I nodded. And it was cool because like, for me personally, like worship is the way that I connect with God. And it's cool to see how even though there's a language barrier and we can't really communicate very well, we can communicate through worship. And we can worship together as one church. And it was just so awesome.
I had one more thing to say. The pastor, he was like a super awesome guy, even though he spoke like zero English. He was still like super awesome, and he always gave us like big hugs. One of the things I didn't know when we went down there is that we were actually the first church to go to that and like be able to reach out to them in mission work. And they never stopped thanking us. Like anytime they saw us, they're like, thank you, gracias, like all the time. And it was just like these little things that we did, they impacted them so much. Like we were there for 3 days. Like we were at that church for such a little time, and they're like so thankful for us. And I feel like we did music, and I feel like, this is just me, I didn't feel like I did like a ton of work, but like they like appreciated that so much. They thought it was just like life-changing. And it's just like such a little thing that we did, we're able to impact them so much that the pastor was like, y'all want to come back next year? And so, well, he said it in Spanish, obviously, and then staff translated. But it was amazing to see how our work impacted the community and impacted that church so much.
Yeah, so I have 2 things I want to say. The first thing is that when you go on retreats and when you go on mission trips, you expect God to move, but when you're just here living, you don't really expect that. It's just kind of in the back of your mind. And so I think we all learned to expect him to move in ways during our daily lives. That was one of the main themes we all talked about. And then the second thing is that we learned a phrase called Dios te bendiga, and that means God bless you. And so on the last day, it was Thursday, we were in Old San Juan, and I felt bad because we weren't doing any work. We were just kind of spending the day to ourselves, walking around the city, buying things, eating Wendy's, going to the beach, relaxing. But I remember talking to Hayes and Daphne and Jesse, and I was telling them that I felt bad, and they were like, no, you saying Dios te bendiga to everyone was mission work. That was you reaching out to people and saying God bless you. And so that was cool. That really hit me.
And you know, one of the things was we got to see some of the areas that had been devastated by the hurricane, and they would oftentimes point it out to us when we were going somewhere. You could see roofs that had been ripped off and stuff. We weren't working on it. We weren't like doing major construction stuff. But one of the things is that when the church was damaged and it was closed, a lot of people stopped coming to church because obviously they were closed, but even after the damage had been mostly repaired at their church, some of the people had stopped altogether. And it wasn't until we started doing VBS and their kids started coming back that it, obviously there was only 1 week in there, so hopefully that will continue, but the parents were coming back too, and they were reaching people that had not been involved in the church, and so they loved that. But the pastor was amazing. So was the other church that we served with. In fact, one of their church members, and I guess she wasn't a church member, but she was just an adult that was there, she actually accepted Christ for the first time this week. And it was because, I'm going to start crying here in a second, it was because of our youth and how much these kids right here loved on not only their church that was serving with us, but the church that was there. And on Thursday, we invited the Baimon church to come and go to the beach with us. And they did, and the pastor came, and the pastor, apparently my child did not tell me they were cooking hamburgers for us while I was in the beach, but they were cooking for them. And then this woman from the other church actually got baptized in the ocean by the pastor from Baimon. So it was like just one of those kind of amazing moments. And McKay, do you want to share what you put on the group meet?
Yeah. So one of the people that like I got really close with, and she was like the one they were talking about who was like driving us. Her name was Stephanie, but there were 3 Stephanies, so we called her Fefa. And just the way that she interacted with people, it just seemed like she had been around and was like a mainstay of that church. And so, like we said, we kind of like exchanged numbers with most of the people there. And so I was actually catching up with her yesterday, and she told me that she hadn't been to church in 2 years before we had gotten there. And she like told me in broken English that it was just a restart and a refresh on her life. And so that was something that was really powerful to me, because when we were down there that week, like I wouldn't have known that any of these people hadn't been to church. It seemed like, they all had been there for as long as they could remember, and yet there was like somebody who was there who was leading other people who hadn't been to church in 2 years, and we were the cause of like her being able to come back and refresh her life.
Yeah, I was going to touch on that a little bit as well. I got an opportunity to talk one afternoon with Juan. There's a couple pictures of him going up there. He was kind of the children's director at their church and had been involved there for a long time. And his English was awesome. He had actually done an internship in Washington, I believe it was Washington, and then he's working on his master's in counseling right now. And he kind of shared a lot with me, just kind of what you talked about a little bit earlier, David, how you know, the hurricane had really destroyed a lot of the church. When you guys look at it now, the pictures look pretty new, and that's because the whole like roof atop like the whole altar area and the stage had all been ripped off. And it was all, everything you see now looks a lot newer because they've been rebuilding. And he shared with me a lot about how everyone stopped coming to church, everything shut down. And that was something that walking in, we would have had absolutely no idea which kids had always been involved in the church, which had never been to the church, which had stopped coming and hadn't been back for a while. We just, you know, were under the assumption that everyone had been there and that these people are all super involved. And he just started just tearing up, talking with me, sharing how this opportunity in this VBS and the kids coming and sharing their testimonies and their object lessons and just playing games was such a restart for their community. And he was having the opportunity to talk with, they had never done a VBS before. They had never done a VBS. And with one of, he was talking with one of the parents, one of the moms of the kids from the community that came to the VBS but had never come to their church before, and was asking like, can we do this again? Are you doing this again next year? And they've decided that they wanted to do VBS now and make it an annual thing, and they're going to do it every year, and they want to do it just like they planned it, and how that was just such a cool moment for us to be able to like participate in God's plan, to help be a part of something that is going to be continually transformative for that community at every opportunity. And that was just something that we would have not expected going in, and was just an incredible blessing to be a part of God's plan in that way.
Yeah, one thing I want to share is that we went on a prayer walk, and on that prayer walk, right before we... Okay, so a prayer walk is when we split up into 3 groups, and one group went around the church and was just praying, right? They went around
in the neighborhood around the church.
Yes.
We started at the church and then went out.
And then we went further out into the community, and as we were walking by, we would like knock on the houses, and we were with translators for PPM and everything, and we would just come into their house, and they were so inviting, and they like told us things. They were like, please pray for our like grandchildren and everything. And then one of the students would pray for them, and this one man really spoke to me, at least. We were praying for him, and then after, like right as we were about to leave, he goes, I was really praying for a group to come and just pray for me, because he was really sick, right? He was really, yes. He was really sick, and we were just like, I just really needed someone to like lay God's hands on me and just pray with me. And we were there, and
yeah, he said he was praying specifically for a group.
Yeah, like a big group, and it was just so crazy to think that like God placed us there for him.
So in the preparation for the prayer walk, Katie, you gonna?
Can I say? I was in the group that like was going like around the community, around the church, and we had all had our signs, and we were walking.
Explain that.
Oh, sorry. So one of the ladies who worked for Praying Pelicans Ministries, she was, and Debbie, yeah, she was in charge, and she we all had to close our eyes and just like let God speak to us, and everyone had like an image in their head, just like of something super random. Like one girl's was like a purple Band-Aid or something. It was just like super
yellow.
Sorry. It was like just like super random stuff. And then we would go around, and God would show us those things, and then that's who we would pray for. And my group, it was just crazy because like I had never done anything like that before. And like my group, we literally walked out of the church, and one of our people in our group, her thing was a man on a house on a hill on his balcony waving to us. And we literally walk out of the church and look to the right, and there's a man on his balcony waving to us. And she said like a white house, and his house is white. It was so weird. But we started walking, and Paul's, his was like a house that was like red and white stripes, like the whole house. And like, I don't know about you guys, but like that is like so random, and like I've never seen a house that's like red and white.
And mine was orange and mailbox.
Yeah. And Hayes's was, I did not, just let me say one thing. And so, Paul's was red and white striped house. And so I turned and I'm like, guys, there is a red and white striped house. And we go up there and like.
In front of the house was a mailbox with the orange numbers for the house on it.
And we walked up there, and it was like it's like the community there was so cool. Like the lady who was there with us that worked for Praying Pelican Ministry, like she literally stood in front of their house and was like, "Hey guys, like come out, we're here." And like so like they're super close, but no one was there. But we were standing there, and she's like, "We should," because like they're how the houses were. It was like one driveway, and then it split off into like 3. And she's like, "We should go down there to the house at the end because that lady is extremely sick and probably near her death, and we should go pray for her." And like, it was kind of touched my heart because I felt my calling to like work with like elderly, and I was like, and my sign was a sad old woman, and we went down there, and she went in there, and we went into the lady's house, and she was sitting there in a wheelchair, and I'm not entirely sure even at this point like what language she spoke, because she like just like she couldn't speak. Yeah, she couldn't speak. Like she just kind of like groaned, and but like it was because she had cancer. I think we said it was.
It was a degenerative disease.
Yeah, or something. And like I felt called to pray for her, and I did, and she was just so sweet, and like she just like kept on looking at us, and she looked so happy, and I was like, this lady is about to die like soon. We like, it's obvious, but God is moving through her so much. And she was like if you like, I couldn't look at her without like crying and getting like goosebumps, and it was crazy. And now
okay, I'm gonna elaborate on that. I'm gonna elaborate on that story. So that sweet old lady at the top of the hill that we went and prayed for. So my treasure was my like little object thing was just an apple. It was super random, but like an apple. So we went into the lady's house and we prayed over her, and she understood what we said, but she just couldn't talk back. But she would nod and she would make some noises to make us like make it known that she understood. So it was a really sweet moment. We all circled around her and prayed over her. It was really sweet. And as we were walking out of her house, we walked past her kitchen, and all over the kitchen are like cabinets and drawers and like glass jars and everything, and they were all decorated in apples. And it was just so amazing to see God work in that way. So yeah.
And one thing that touched me, we served a gentleman named Victor, who was a very close friend of the pastor, and he was very, very sick. I mean, I think he has cancer as well. And we found out one thing, that he really, really liked music. And I do remember, I think that the second day that we were there, Hayes went in and actually sang to him, and I think that was one of our more powerful moments. And I think at that same site, Jim got the privilege of painting with pink, and the accent colors on the house were pink. And I think soon after she started painting, I think the wife came out, and somehow we were able to learn that when Victor and her had gotten married, that the house was pink. So Jim got the honor of restoring the house back to the color of when they got married, and it was just it was a really special thing. And really, one of the things that I really just learned was the spiritual maturity of our youth group. It's just, you know, I think that David already mentioned about the lady that decided to give her life to Christ, that was from the other, the chaperone from another group. And I mean, I sat on the bus and talked to her and asked her about it, and she specifically said Lawrenceville. I mean, what they did at VBS, which, you know, I didn't go to the VBS just because I felt more comfortable serving, but just the impact of our VBS and that our children ran that. I don't think Jen and Ryan really had anything to do with the planning, but that was such an impactful part of our trip. That's just, I mean, it's just to me highlighted the love of our children that just really touched her heart and made her realize that she wanted to give her life over. And she said she's a new woman, and she's going to get involved with the church. And it's just a special and meaningful, I think, trip for all of us.
Speaking of the VBS, the planning and everything, the church, the Fountain of Power Church had VBS in the past, some years back, but it was very much like a school for them. They didn't have the kind of VBS that we have. And so it was come in and bring your Bible and let's learn about this or that in the Bible, and it was very kind of structured and which is very surprising because their church, their worship service is not at all Methodist. I mean, it's not methodical. It's very kind of whatever happens, happens, and whenever somebody stands up, you know, and needs to be prayed over, that's kind of how it goes. But their VBS had been very structured, and the pastor and the youth pastor, especially Juan, said that seeing how this VBS program that our youth had put together so brought out the community they are going to model. They want to do it. They said, I don't know how many times, they would really love to see us come back, you know, both our church and Suplee, but they really want, regardless, to model their VBS program on the one that our youth put together. And it was really a testament to the work that our guys had done in planning everything.
While we're on the prayer walk, one of the houses we stopped at, well, actually most of them, like the people there didn't speak any English, so our PPM for my group was Maria, and she was great. She actually gave me this bracelet, and it has 3 turtles on it, and she said that when you're going through your faith and through your life, just slow down, don't go too fast. And yeah, so that was really cool how she got that for me. But anyway, so she spoke in Spanish to them for like, one lady, she talked for 20 minutes easily, and we had no idea what they were saying. I mean, maybe like one word, but then like I'd forget it because they were talking so fast. Yeah, Dios, yeah, that's God. Yeah, yeah. So it was really cool, and just them talking and seeing the lady's face expressions change from like kind of like saddish to like a little happy, and then at the very end kind of crying and joyful, and then we got to pray. It was just really neat. And even though I didn't understand them at all, I just knew the conversation that they were having was very meaningful and very important to that lady.
I was in the same group as Ben, and right after we went to that house, one of the ladies that was there with us, she was talking to Bria, and she pointed up to a house that was a little bit up a hill. And I never understood what she said, I never figured it out. But so we went up to the house that she had pointed at. And so when we went in, this guy came out. And so we prayed over him, and while we were praying over him, me, McCade, and Ben saw a picture on the wall of a white flower. And that was someone's thing that they saw, their treasure. But so after we prayed for him, we were walking away, Maria was talking to us, and she said that guy told her that he had been drinking a lot. And so when we came in and we prayed for him, he said that he was gonna like stop doing that. He was gonna change his life and like go to church more and see if like falling away. And so that kind of just like crazy how we changed his life so much just by coming and praying over him.
And one of the things that hit me about that prayer walk was that just from talking, you know, we expected something to happen on that prayer walk. And I think I heard some of the kids say, why can't we have a prayer walk around here? And, you know, I don't really know the answer to that. There's no reason why we couldn't, but I just think if you expect God to work, He's going to work. And, you know, I think there was 2 things on that prayer walk that really just hit me. is that Jack was one of the guys from the church. And he was the person that put people at ease. And then, when Jack kind of opened the door and people let their fences down, then Maria, who was with Praying Pelican and really wasn't from the area, it just opened the door for her to talk about God and Dios. And it was just, you could just tell by the conversation that there was some very deep conversation. And everybody, or most everybody, seemed very open to us praying for them. And I guess my prayer from this trip is that we can, have a prayer walk here. I think we've got some willing participants on this road here. But I mean, that takes a bold step, and it takes expecting God to do something. And I think, to me, just getting away from the distractions of here, and also expecting God to work were two of the things that really made the trip extremely special for me. Was just, if you expect God to work, He will. And I think a lot of times in this heavy stimulated world, we don't really think about God, and we certainly don't expect Him to do anything. But this trip showed me that if you go into it with the expectation that God's going to move, He will. And if you don't expect Him to move, He's not.
I just have something super short. Excuse me. In Puerto Rican culture, it's very open, so everyone knew each other, which I thought was really cool. When we walked up to houses, I was like, should we ring the doorbell? Should we announce our presence? And they're like, nah, we're good. We're just we just show up to people's houses. And I just thought it was really cool how they were everyone is so welcoming and hospitable, even though they had no idea who we were. And so I feel like that's something that we can definitely bring back here, bring back to Georgia. It's just the hospitality, which is something we've touched on a million times. So that's it.
Yeah, y'all have touched on things that you wanted to bring back here, and that's we're running low on time, so I just wanted to kind of ask one last quick question, especially for the students to answer, just for us, is going on a mission trip, yes, it's to help impact them, but there's also, you're supposed to come away from that mission trip having learned something that you want to apply. And so if you had to kind of wrap it up, I know that's kind of hard to, but if you had to wrap it up into just a couple sentences of what you've learned and what you want to, how you want to be different, or what you want to apply to your life that you learned from this past week. So especially the students, try to answer that for us real quick in just a minute.
I think we've said this a lot, but being hospitable to new people, and even though people that we may have seen but not really know well, just talk to them and just be hospitable like they were to us. It's just be nice to people, just talk to people, even though you don't know them, just interact with them, because you never know what could lead or what could happen from that relationship, or how you could impact them or how they can impact you.
Yeah, we have a hospitality team, but I feel like instead of a team, we should just all be the hospitality team. Instead of having 3 people that are in charge of doing that and then the rest of us doing nothing, we should, instead of do nothing, do something. Yeah.
I think we need to bring back just the confidence that they had and how much trust they had in God and everything. Because I feel like here we kind of hide our faith, and I just think that that's wrong. Compared to what they've gone through, and how still they'll smile and they'll just go around saying Dios te bendiga, and no matter to who, and we are over here just walking down the street keeping our heads down and not sharing what we know and not sharing what we've learned. So I think we need to bring back the confidence that we have.
So one of the things that I learned was that there's no wrong way to worship. And they taught me that through, so the dancing girls that they had talked about earlier, I was wondering what that was, so I asked. Dance team. Dance team. You know what I mean? There was a guy. Okay, geez, guys. But so I was curious about that, so I asked, and they said that they have that because in the Bible it says that they worship through dance, through song. And I was like, oh wow. I had never really thought of that as that. So yeah, that's one of those things that I learned.
I think for me, it was more of focusing more on how we can show the love of God, because I feel at least me, I'm always if I'm gonna spread the gospel, I have to like be like going up to everyone and saying like, did you know like Jesus did this? But like, I think I learned, especially with like how we couldn't talk to them, a lot of them, well, that like we can just like show love and like be kind to everyone and like not be like judgmental or anything. We can just like be like a light for someone who's in the darkness, and that's showing God's love. So that's what I.
Yeah, okay, so what I learned is that like when you think of a mission trip, you think of going and like serving other people and like building houses and all that kind of physical stuff. But what I learned from this mission trip is that we're not alone in our faith, that we have a family, even if it's hundreds of miles away in Puerto Rico, that we have a family in Christ, and that the people there are not alone either because they have a family here that's hundreds of miles away, but are still praying for them and are still loving on them. And that's what I learned.
I think we take advantage of the fact that you are able to flush toilet paper here because you have to put it in the trash can when you're there. And then who was it Debbie or Maria? I can't remember, but she was just like, if you flush your toilet paper, we're gonna make you like get it. And so we clogged the pipes of the church. So good times, go us. Any other serious thing I'd like to say?
Any other things from y'all, students especially, that you learned?
Iguanas are scary, dude. Those things are huge.
Iguanas are like squirrels over there. They're
How was it not having your phones?
Fine.
It was good.
I didn't miss it.
I loved it.
It was great. Other than the pictures. Like not being able to.
Just one more thing, I don't know if we mentioned it, but the pastor, in Puerto Rico, the pastors usually retire after 30 years. And he said that he's kind of been losing his mojo or whatever, kind of ish. You could say it like that. And like he was just been like he's like getting close to retirement, and but because of us coming there, it like revived his like it just like revived his self-esteem, and he was gonna be a pastor for a little bit longer now because of us, and that was really deep because we know how many people, many more people he can reach through his preaching and through outreach in the community.
Perfect. You got one?
So, this is kind of just to wrap things up, but one of the verses, like a couple of the verses that we justified ourselves with going down there were like Joshua 1:9, where it says like, the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go, or Matthew, yeah. So Matthew 28:19, it says, therefore go into all nations and make disciples. And so, yeah, that justifies us going to Puerto Rico, but like, Georgia and Lawrenceville, that's a nation too, y'all. So like, when we say that, we're going to go and baptize people and make disciples of all nations, or that the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go, like he's right here too. He's not just in Puerto Rico. He's not just across an ocean. He's here. And so that's why we're talking about bringing prayer walks back here and bringing hospitality back here, because we need to be the hands and feet of Christ right here at our home.
Amen. Go McCabe. Thank you guys for going and for serving, but also for sharing your stories with us. I know that if we probably sat here for up to 3 hours, they would keep talking. And so I know parents have probably heard tons of stories. You'll hear more as something random pops into their heads. But we're just so proud of you guys for going and serving, and we're just so honored that you guys went and represented our church and represented God and represented Georgia down in Puerto Rico. And so thank you for being actually the hands and feet of Christ. It was, I'm sure, an amazing experience for y'all. And so if you guys have got more questions for them, feel